India grapples with the COVID-19 and an extended lockdown, the biggest question in our mind is, what will the exit from this lockdown look like? How much time will it take for the economy also to get back on its feet, and how we can all contribute? We've been bringing you some of the biggest voices across corporate India, including policymakers. And I'm pleased to be joined today by the CMD of Singhania. Welcome to the show. Absolute pleasure to be speaking with you today.
Thank you for having me.
Let me begin by just getting your sense on where we stand. Now, we know that the lockdown is absolutely crucial for us to fight COVID-19, but it has also turned out to be the biggest disruptor possibly in any of our lifetimes. What is the kind of impact you see this having on Indian business and the Indian economy?
So firstly, I think it's inevitable that we had the lockdown. We had to have it. Whilst people think that, you can always look in retrospect and say, why did you have to have the lockdown? We're only at 18,000 cases. We're ahead of the curve. But I think it's important to know that without the lockdown, you could have been significantly worse. So it was very important that this lockdown happened, and it was extended to 5th of May. And even if it does get extended a little bit more, I think it is for the longer good. Having said that, I think the impact that it is having on industry and economy is far higher than one can imagine. And obviously, one is looking forward to the lockdown opening, so one can start businesses. But currently, unfortunately, sales of most companies in India are at zero because there are no sales. None of the retail outlets are open. And once you say, maybe you should open up factories, how many people will open up factories when you don't have any sales? So you've got to actually open up the front end before you can start opening up the manufacturing. So it is a little tough for everybody out there, but we just got to wait and see.
If I speak specifically about your businesses and how they are faring, do you think that right now, since all the focus is on extremely essential items and the flow of essential items, there has been a huge setback? What is the kind of recovery timeline that you see?
Well, it's very difficult to say what's the recovery timeline. There are always two views. One view is that it's going to be a long and slow recovery, which is a lot of people are saying that maybe 6 months to a year. My view is slightly contrary, and I think there's a lot of pent-up demand that will be there. People are sitting at home and are quite frustrated, and I think they'll want to go out for a little bit of self-gratification and spend a little bit money and make themselves feel good. For example, if you just say people sitting at homes in Bombay in small homes for a long period of time, they might just take a car on the opening of the lockdown and drive to Goa and just spend 4 or 5 days just getting out of a cooped up environment. And I personally see a lot of that happening, because if I take the country and I break it up into two parts, people who are scared of COVID and people who are not scared of COVID. I mean, we already saw yesterday in Mumbai where certain areas, lots of people came out on the road, and those were obviously people who are not scared of COVID. So whilst there will be a guy who will not want to go to the movies, there will be a guy who's dying to go to the movies because that's his way of stress relief or just, sort of getting out of the environment he's in. So my personal view is that if I had to bet, I think there will be a bounce back of demand.
Okay. Let me come to the phased lift of the lockdown, Mr. Singhania. And the first attempt of it, so to speak, was supposed to be from the 20th of April. Have, in your group, have you been able to, start any kind of operations at all? Because a lot of companies, even though they could start functioning in rural areas and in areas which were green areas, which were not containment zone, found it very difficult because of a lack of labor. What has been your own experience?
So we haven't been able to start any factories. One, labor is the issue, whether it's our real estate or whether it's factories. Labor in the real estate is even much worse. But I think transportation has not moved up. Ports are not open. And like I said earlier, demand has to come for products. There's no point just manufacturing and going into stocks and inventory. I think demand, and the demand will really come when the lockdown on the 5th of May will open. When retail opens, and there will be a lag. It's not that on the 6th of May, people are going to go to stores. So people have got inventory. And I think what's more important is pre-COVID, India was already in a very serious slowdown. And COVID has only amplified the situation. So it's a part of a double whammy.
Do you think that what has also made it difficult are guidelines, and every state has its own, but these are central guidelines, that even if manufacturing does start, a lot of the onus is on the employer. You have to keep people within the factory premises or the manufacturing premises, and you are solely responsible even if there is a single COVID-19 case. Do you think there needs to be some kind of flexibility here?
Of course, I mean, eventually, if we open up the factory, there's no way for me to ensure that there's not a single COVID case in there. Are we able to ensure there's not a single COVID case in India? I mean, the gestation period is 14 days on this. How do I, then I should quarantine people for the next 14 days. Keep people within the factory is not easy. There's no sanitation facilities there. And I cannot control a worker that once he leaves my factory, where he goes. It's impossible for me to police him. So some of this will have to be relaxed if you want to be realistic about opening up.
I want to get to a economic package. A lot has been said on economic packages so far, and we've seen a lot of focus initially on basic bread and butter, making sure the poorest of the poor are safe and are fed, which should be the top priority. There is still some waiting in terms of an economic package for corporate India.
Sorry, you'll have to repeat that. I got cut off quite a bit with you.
Do you think that's the need of?
So I lost you that whole question. Can you please repeat the question because it was right?
Okay, sure. My question essentially was, we're still waiting for an economic package to come out. We saw some initial announcements focused on the bottom of the pyramid, which of course should be the top priority. But do you think it's time now for government support to Indian businesses to ensure that there is longevity and then they do survive?
Absolutely. I think we're really craving for a package because, you can plan your business for a 5% and 10% disruption, 15% disruption, but you cannot plan for 100% no sales. And no company is really geared to deal with that. It's, some companies can deal with it for 3 months, some for 2 months, some for 1 month, but, everybody is going to run out of steam in a few months. And I think the socio-economic problem that will come out of this is going to be so gigantic that if we don't deal with it quickly and efficiently, it's going to be a very serious problem.
Just get your thoughts on the socio-economic problems. What is the kind of, sort of red flags we need to watch out for? One is the fact that, labor has moved from the cities back to their hometowns, and those who can't possibly will want to once the lockdown ends. On the other hand, you have this huge consuming class staring at a lot of uncertain economic future as well.
So let's look at two different things. One is your migrant labor that has gone away and now is harvesting season. It's going to be a while before they come back. And India really survives on the migrant labor. That's one part of it. Number two, consumption will take time to come back. And number three, exports. I mean, if you take not only the Indian economy, if you take the textile sector today, there's a massive amount of exports out of the textile sector. That is going to disappear because they're saying there's going to be a demand contraction of 50% in the US. If you take a country like Bangladesh, which has almost $40 billion worth of textile exports, that's also coming to a grinding halt. And Bangladesh, they've come out with a very good package where they're saying that at 2%, they're giving industry money at 2% to pay wages. And they've given a 75,000 crore package to the industry. Now, fact is that when the US demand comes back, everybody is bleeding so hard, it's not going to come back in a hurry. The textile sector today employs over 40 million people. I mean, it's going to be a large part of that workforce, which is not going to have work because there's no demand.
The other big debate raging across the world, really, not just in India, is extended lockdown versus resumption, at least partially, of economic activity. Where do you weigh in on this?
So I would, if I had to choose, it's a Hobson's choice. But, I think the economic deaths in this are going to be far higher than the virus deaths. we're underestimating the economic deaths that are going to happen. If you look around you, every small business guy, whether it's a mechanic, whether it's a plumber, whether it's a healthcare, they don't have work today. Take your kirana shop guy, he's got no sales. And we're not able to understand what his situation is, where his next meal is going to come from. And, it's not good to say that, the virus is not important, but the economic problem out of this is going to be far, far higher. So, like I said, it's the Hobson's choice.
What do you see changing permanently? Do you think work from home will become the new normal? In the shorter term, do you see a pairing among several companies on their workforce in terms of job cuts, in terms of pay cuts?
So I don't know whether work from home will become the norm, because I don't think anybody wants to sit home all day. People like to get out and go out of the house and go to work. And there's a lot more than doing a Zoom call every day, because you get fed up of a Zoom call. You get a headache. Having said that, I think a new evolution will take place of how you will work. I think people will bring down costs. Costs will have to come down to compete. And there will be a new order up to the time that the virus is found. But I think once the antivirus is found, but once you have an antivirus, I think, pretty much life will go back to normal.
There has been an appeal from government again and again to business owners of all sizes, really, not to cut pay or to cut jobs. Do you think this is something that business can and should follow?
Well, it's a very noble thought, but if you don't have finances, survival comes first. And if you don't have money to pay, what do you do?
Okay. Last question, Mr. Singhania, and just on your whole experience, a lot of us are working. What has been the biggest learning for you?
Sorry, again, that last question was completely cut off. I could not get a word.
Personally, to beat the stress?
Sorry, I did not hear your last question at all. Are you there?
Yeah, I'll repeat it. Yes, I am. Can you see me?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay. The last question, Mr. Singhania, is about your own experience. As we all grapple with this new normal of work from home, everyone has different experiences. What has yours been in terms of, any new learnings, new skills, or ways to improve productivity, manage stress? How would you sum up?
No, I mean, you know what? Life is an evolution. You learn something every day. Somebody said that if you don't come out of this with a new skill set, you'll not come out better. So it's really how do you adapt to the situation and manage on a day-to-day basis. Doing an interview on a Zoom call, or having a board meeting on a Zoom call. It's a new normal. But you know what? Nothing's going to supplement having a board meeting with the physical members there as opposed to a Zoom call. So temporarily you can do it. I personally, I have an absolutely packed day as I have normally, because I'm a very disciplined person. So from 7:30 in the morning to midnight, my schedule is packed. I put in things to do which I never got time to do before. And, so I'm getting a lot more time in the gym. I'm focusing on a lot more aspects of the business which I would not get time to do earlier. And I'm keeping myself busy. And you've got to, I think the most important thing you've got to do is be positive. And they say this too shall pass. So tough times pass and tough men last. So you just got to stay the course. And don't look up at the mountain that we have to cross. Just look at your feet. Focus on that one step at a time. I was talking to my wife today and she said, somebody will go on for a year. I said, you know what? Your next deadline is the 5th of May and hope that the lockdown opens. And let's focus. We'll get there, and then you got to take one step at a time.
Absolutely. Wise words there. Thank you so much, Mr. Singhania, for your time.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.